We're not sure if SEO is dead or not. It's going through a metamorphosis for sure, but today we'll just call it SO, search optimization. When ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude serve us up an answer, they're still looking at authority signals from the SERP. They're still choosing the top 3 most credible sites first. It just takes a new level of skill and execution to create a holistic strategy that's worthy of that visibility. And your customer journey is changing too. Instead of vetting 10 options from 10 blue links, they're using their network, their gut, and their experience. And if you've made it into their shortlist, then they're turning to LLMs to rank and stack you against your competitors, pricing, reviews, ROI proof. And if your content doesn't answer every question for every stakeholder in that buying group, you might as well be invisible. My guest today, Nick Fraunfelder, owner and CEO of SureOak, a prominent SEO agency for enterprise B2B clients. Today, he breaks down exactly how the search marketing rules have flipped and what's working now and why personal and entity thought leadership are non-negotiables. If you're here to learn about B2B marketing and how it's changed in the post-AI world, you're in the right place. Now, here we go with Nick Fraunfelder.
This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Nick, everything is changing in the SEO, GEO, all of that, whatever acronym you want. How do you define GEO, and what specific tactical shifts should brands make today to ensure that they're being cited in LLMs rather than just ranking on page 1 of Google?
Yeah, so that is a great place to start, Austin. I think one of the things that we get asked by our clients, and just so you know, who SureOak is, we basically work with just enterprise clients, and all we do is SEO, GEO. And one of the things where they come to us, particularly on the first discovery call, there is a mindset is, I know what SEO is. Now, do I need a GEO strategy, or do an AEO or AI SEO strategy, or a LLM, optimization strategy? Like whatever these acronyms are, but people are massively confused. Is like, do I need a new strategy? And the answer is, I think if you go back, there was actually a really good podcast put out by Danny Sullivan and Larry Mueller. If you haven't gone back and listened to that, but the idea is you need to align with Google's business model. And Google's business model, and I think this applies to all the LLMs, is that we are trying to give information on demand at speed, at scale to people, not robots. Right.
Yes.
And so nothing has really changed. So like while SEO now has become, instead of just a search engine nomenclature just for Google, it's a more broader, it's just search. It's just search.
Yeah.
And so everything that you've been doing from an SEO perspective, if you were doing it with Google's business model in mind, so EEAT, which we all know, if you've been following those guidelines, you just got to start doing it better. Right. And so like, what their point was, do you need to hire an agency? The answer is no. You just need to write. You just need to write. You need to write what your customers, what they're worried about, and doing that well. So we can get into the details of what's changed, because a lot has changed in the world of SEO. But like, I just view SEO, GEO, I don't think the strategies are as different as people think. There are little tactics that matter, but the baseline at the end of the day is content that people want. And this is the main difference. And this is why it's gotten better in my mind, is it can't be derivative anymore. So if you were just had some kind of like informational, topical, information you're putting out there, you're not going to get cited for it. You don't get credit for it. You really have to be adding value with your content to get noticed in this new SEO world. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I actually forget what the original question was, but like, to my point, that was the intent of it. Like, I don't need a new strategy. I just got to get better and get a little sharper about the message I'm putting out to my ICP, or my ideal customer profile.
Yeah, that leads me to a good point. Bringing up the ICP, I'm going to circle back to it, but Google released that helpful content update, I think around October or something, which a lot of people perceived as a combat to AI content. It's not necessarily a combat to AI content, but it really is like, we understand the patterns of AI content being duplicated pretty much everywhere. And what you're saying is getting better at writing is going to require more specificity. How do you pull that sort of specificity out of your clients? I mean, is that just, I guess, what data sources are you looking at? in order to enhance the EEAT of the
No, that's okay. What you just said is like really easy to say, really hard to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So as an SEO agency, traditionally SEO agencies, let's say go back 10 years, what we try to do, we just optimize. We optimize everything. You have content, we optimize it. We build links around it. We give you
Mhm.
better schema. We give you better metadata. We're going to optimize that content and so that it gets noticed. Well, what has happened if that content is derivative, if an AI LLM can write it,
Mhm.
then it already knows about it and it doesn't really matter. And so Google's been doing this forever with these helpful content updates. It's like if it was spammy, if it was over accelerated, if it was this hack, this loophole you found, we're going to close it. And what we're
Mhm.
noticing now with LLMs, these loopholes are closing every 6 weeks. They used to, close every 3 months, every 6 months. Now they're just closing every 6 weeks. So you found
Yeah.
something that accelerated. We used to, like when LLMs came around, we could keyword stuff again. Yay! We could do
Yeah.
parasitic SEO. We could do yay! We're winning, and then it closes 6 weeks later. So the move now for SEO agencies, which is really probably uncomfortable for a lot of my peers, is we're having to invest in writers and creative again.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
And so like when we sit with our customers, hey, we want to write about this topic. We're like, well, that's derivative. Well, then help me not make it derivative. Well, do you
Mhm.
have any original data that we could amplify or that we could write about? Give us new data. And they're like, well, we don't have time for that. Okay, well, then we're going to have to start thinking about doing a survey for you or actually having to write a new point of view. Because when you think about the way LLMs work, and I hope we get into this, but like the
For
release
sure.
of personal intelligence by Google is a game changer, right? It's
Yeah.
already been moving this way. So the idea is now I'm having these conversations with this LLM. It's understanding my intent so much deeper because of keyword fanouts. Just because I type in, so like when I go to the library, this is the example Google always gives. You go to the library, walk up to the librarian, tell me about travel. Well, what's a librarian do? Like, well, what kind of travel? Do you like tropical? Do you like skiing? Do you like,
Mm.
tell me, well, what do you mean travel? Is this for business? For pleasure. Well, Google's based on what it knows about you. And now with personal intelligence, it's looking at your YouTube, your Gmail, your
Mm.
calendar, your Drive. It knows so much about you. And so what is happening now is like it's already giving you this intent and it's asking. So just because you asked the LLM about travel, it's
Yeah.
anticipating all those librarian questions and it's going to take the index sites and all the crawling that is done on the search engine, take it into the LLM, and it's going to apply it and it's going to give you a much deeper answer. So what people really need to understand now is as you write, you have to answer all these other, like just because you have on your buyer journey, just because you have first impression down, doesn't
Mhm.
mean you have pricing and comparison and benchmarking. We do mostly B2B or
Mhm.
regulated business services. So we're having to answer all these other questions: safety, risk aversion, how you compare, what your customer reviews are. You have to write about all this middle of the funnel content as well. So
Mm.
when the client says, I don't have anything original to talk about, well, that's a problem in this world. That's a
Yeah.
real problem. So we're going to
Yeah.
have to walk alongside you and start coming up with those topics, those angles, that original research, something interesting to say that the LLM doesn't know yet. So when it goes from pre-training data to what they call grounding or RAG pipelines, it's
Mhm.
actually now like, here's a credible website. Here's a very interesting snippet I haven't seen before that answers this question really directly. That's where clients need to go. And that's where we're spending a lot of our time with clients is we're investing in content before. Like we're always like, hey, just, yeah, change your header, change the architecture, add some schema. We're good. No. That's not
Yeah.
nearly enough anymore. It's like, hey, is this a really interesting piece of content? Did you just AI generate it? Is it slop? Is it derivative?
Mm.
That's really where I think SEO is going. And it's great for the consumer. It's great for Google's business
Yeah.
model because they're giving people exactly what they want. So I don't know. What's your take on it? You guys do a lot
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think back to this book that we have is called Digital PR Unfiltered. The approach that we take is very data driven, and I wanted to ask you about primary sources because what we do with our clients is yes, we're looking for .gov info. We're looking for like let's say we're writing a piece on I don't know for a roofing company. We're looking at insurance claims, we're looking at police reports, but also we're asking the client for proprietary data or first party data. And there are some clients who have never run a survey from their customers before, so we'll help them set that up. Looking at what's already available, like you said, like what is derivative and what gaps, like what sort of content gaps are there, and then be able to put that together. A lot of what we do is on the offsite authority building with link building I'm curious how that has changed in this landscape. Like there are kind of two sides of the party. Some agencies I talk to say like we don't really do link building and we've been able to get, significant results. But then the other side is like, well, link building is the backbone of our strategy. And with schema, with on-site content, we can kind of use AI and LLMs to leverage our creation of that, but it's a lot harder to build consistent high quality relationships, and we still need a
Mm.
human in the loop. So I guess I really want to get into what KPIs and metrics CMOs should be looking at in this kind of, no click environment. But before we get into that, like what's your take on offsite authority and link
Oh,
building?
yeah. I think a lot of agencies who dislike off-page work, they say we don't do it because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really hard,
It's strenuous.
right? And sure, we probably have 20 people dedicated to that,
Yeah.
alone, right? And
Hmm.
so the best piece of advice is back to your original point is first party data. In a perfect world, and this is what we encourage our clients to do all the time anyway, but is to start with a piece of content that's link worthy, right?
Mm,
Make it a link magnet. And so if you're doing original survey data, I mean, that is going to be really easy to get backlinks to, right?
yeah.
And that is number one. And the further you get away from that, the harder it is to get the backlinks. And then now you're getting into like, okay, now I'm really having to do a sales job to these webmasters to get a link. And there's going to be an ask for exchange of value of some sort, whether it's an exchange of links or actually, I have high domain authority. Why do you want to be on this? So
Hmm.
that is something that people really need to consider when they think about their off page. It's still a first principle of search that your off page authority is highly important. So go back to page rank.
Hmm.
Larry Page, when he makes this up, he noticed the research papers that certain research papers keep getting cited by all these other research papers. And so when Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity, they still look at this. So they're going to look at your credibility of your site. You're still going to get ranked. So
Hmm.
people say SERPs are dead. That is not the case at all,
No.
right? So it's happening behind the scenes and it's picking the top 3 sites that are the most credible, looking for snippets within those sites, and then is serving up an answer. I think people really need to understand that.
Mm,
Getting ranked is hugely important if you're going to get your snippet in. So having that off-page authority and those signals of your authority are massively important. And so if you want to get into the tactics, so um, you know, I think my advice always is to start with original research, what's link magnet worthy. And then if you
mm,
want to start getting into a full on press and editorial sites, the other big change is no follow and follow links. LLMs
yeah.
don't differentiate as much. LLMs just don't differentiate as much. So social now coming into this world, PR links that, maybe we eschewed earlier as SEO practitioners because they were no follow. Those have juice. Those have juice again. And I don't know where
Yeah.
it goes from here. It changes constantly. But the idea is the metric, and now we're going to talk about your KPI board.
Yeah.
Our guiding principle always was clicks. Give me
Yeah.
clicks. Because
Yeah.
the old world was the user got a list of blue links.
Hmm.
I will self-select my information based on the top 3 links. And that was great as a consumer. But now the number one metric that SEO people use, we still love click-through. We love
Right.
conversion. We still love that. But we worry a lot about AI visibility and being
Yeah.
cited and referenced on LLMs. That is the biggest one. And so the tools aren't great there yet, but that is what we're looking at. So referrals from LLMs, literally just manually typing in keywords like, does our brand show up?
Yeah.
It's a slog. I don't know. What's your view? I mean, what are you guys seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about brand citations, which, oftentimes when we're doing digital PR, we don't have control over how the journalist publishes that content, that link. But like you're saying, like LLMs don't necessarily look at do follow, no follow. They're looking at the context and how relevant the content is in relationship to the query. You're talking about more conversational keywords, and I'm curious how you guys are looking at that within SureOak. Like, how does that shift? Topic clusters. You mentioned earlier in this conversation where we need to address even top, middle, maybe even bottom of the funnel in one single piece of content, having link worthy content. When we're looking at keywords, there's always opportunity in like long tail keywords, but that is changing. And like you said, the tools they're not quite up to par. They haven't really caught up yet. So I'm saying a lot. There's a lot of different questions and angles we could take. But I guess what are we looking at in terms of like keyword research and topic research, and how are you angling for conversational keywords?
So great. So it depends if you're e-commerce or you're B2B. So we're B2B. So
Yeah, let's say B2B. Yeah.
yeah, let's stick with B2B or, we work with like a lot of banks too. So that's like a B2C,
Hmm.
but with like a very high compliance threshold. So we do a
Yeah.
lot of that work too. So shameless plug about Shuro. But getting off
Love
of
it.
that, what is happening now in B2B? And we did a podcast with Kerry Cunningham of Sixth Sense. And what he said blew my mind was that buyers in B2B, they're buying groups, let's say 10 people, and they're not using the LLMs to make their shortlist. They're not using the LM. They're going with, so they're guys usually like my age in their 50s and 40s who have a lot of experience. And so if I'm buying a new CRM, I've had
Hmm.
experience with Salesforce. I've had experience with HubSpot, and I know Pipedrive and a couple others, and that's my short list. What
Mm.
they then do is that's their short, and then they use the LLM. So rank and
Okay.
stack these LLMs. Give me pricing, give me customer reviews, and then that's informing the situation. So as an SEO practitioner, what does that mean
Hmm.
to me? Well, am I writing information? So there's a buying group of 10 people, there's a chief selling officer, and there's probably a CFO involved and maybe the implementations manager. Do I have content that addresses all their needs?
Hmm.
Because now I'm coming up in a conversation that's middle of the funnel. So
Yeah.
awareness was less of, as important in the B2B space, but middle of the funnel was important. And so does my website, my
Mm.
service page talk about ROI? Do I expose my pricing? Have I spent enough time on GA4 and making sure my reviews are clean and encouraging that? Do I have customer referrals? Do I have stories? Do I have
Mm.
testimonials? That stuff is super important. So where SEO was all about like, hey, just give me leads, give me leads, give me leads, give me
Yeah.
inbound. Now it's like, make me credible when I actually do get it in the short list. And am I answering all these questions? So to your point, the
Mm.
keyword fan out or the strategy and the mapping or the clustering is give me the best CRM for small business in legal. Well,
Hmm.
it's already asking about like who's has the best comparison, who has the best reviews. It's already anticipating all those cluster keywords. And so I got to have content that matches those so I can get
Mm.
in the SERP and I can get
Hmm.
in the reasoning model. So I got to get in the grounding layer. I got to get in the grounding layer. Then I got to get in
Yeah.
the reasoning layer. And then I got to appear when the chat happens. And so like I can prove myself as credible to be in the short list. So that
Yeah.
was like one of the bigger like aha moments to me in terms of map my customer journey, map all
Hmm.
the questions that they're going to have along this journey. And do I have content or gaps anywhere along here where one, I don't answer it, I'm out. It's going to hallucinate if I don't, if like,
Mm.
sure, it doesn't have this. So I'm just going to say it does this. And that is completely fabricated, right? It hallucinates.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
got to make sure I'm actually answering the question. And also like, does it view me as credible? Like, do I have authorship? Have I shown track record in this? And like, all of that needs to be in the LM educated to the LLMs. I mean,
Mm.
that to me, that is a big shift. And again, it comes back to that. Are we helping our customers right? Are we helping them see the whole journey? Have we refocused them? I mean, we're an extension of our CMOs team. They have the vision, they have the business goals. We're just trying to help them along. Like, have you thought about this whole journey? Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it takes a lot of writing. It takes a lot of video production. It takes a lot of like worrying about our website and what we're saying to our customers. I mean, it's gotten to be a bigger task. And here's the other thing I think that's really interesting. Like Gartner just put this out, but it used to be SEO used to only be 9% of total marketing spend. I think we'll see
Mm.
that number move closer to like 30%. At least Gartner's saying like a lot of CMOs are going to be investing a lot more in this.
Hmm.
Because here's the other big thing to me, like if I see a B2B ad, it takes me no time to go look at the organic content about that before I click the ad.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is ads going up for clients that have already proven organic authority. So like that's
Mm.
interesting to me. Whereas like people who only invest in ads and no organic, they're seeing their ROAS decline.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot. Like it's such a
Yeah.
touchstone linchpin of all marketing now that we establish authority because the LLM, it's our robot buddy. It's our neighbor next door who knows us really well and is the smartest person alive and is
Yeah.
now telling us everything that we need to know about the brand and what we're going to. So before I click an ad, before I give up an email, before I have a conversation with sales, they're checking me out if I've covered this whole journey. So I'm long-winded. I love this stuff. Like, I'm
No.
sure
Yeah.
like you, but
No.
like,
No. No.
I don't know. How does that strike you?
Yes, yes. No, there's a couple points that I wanted to pick on. You're talking about the buyer's journey, and Gong just released a report the other day that was talking about multi-threading and like B2B deals and like basically how many one of the sections was how many stakeholders are involved by deal size. Obviously, the bigger the deal, the more stakeholders you're going to have. And what that means is you have maybe multiple different customer journeys. You're talking with the CMO, you're talking about an IT implementation, whatever. Are you saying that we have to write content for each of these buyer journeys? I mean, there's a lot of overlap. Obviously, we're looking for ROI, even though a separate part of that Gong report was talking about GTM and like prospecting, and the initial prospecting message in terms of cold outreach actually had a lower conversion or a lower reply rate if ROI was included than if it was role specific and or sorry, company specific versus ROI. So getting into the
Mm,
GTM side of things, we will get there in a second, but I think what you're saying is the role of SEO agencies is not just to write content, but it's also to help the business understand who their target audience is. We have an ICP, but now we're looking into the persona of the ICP
yeah.
and making sure we're addressing each of those, like you said, those kind of like if there's a hole, the LLM is going to hallucinate. And so how do we fill that? How do we do it at scale? Like what was it? Moltbot kind of took the world by storm this week. Everybody's rushing out to get like Mac minis to run this operating system. So my next question where I kind of want to go is the role of SEO agencies or marketing agencies in general in the future, knowing that proliferation of content is super important. It's no longer search engine, it's now just search optimization. There's no E anymore.
Mm,
We have in-house teams with limited capacity, but then we have, our SEO agencies becoming more in demand, less in demand. I mean, how are we seeing the role of agencies evolve in the next 5 years?
yes. I don't know all agencies. I have agency friends and owners. And so, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I definitely understand what they're going through. For an SEO specific agency like
Yeah.
us, the way we've seen ourselves evolve is, I think, like we were talking about before, the traditional SEO was like you get on Upwork and you find the SEO guy. He's just like this technical, make my website SEO.
Do the thing.
Do the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, do your magic. I don't know what SEO is. And like there still is some of that. Absolutely. Our clients have 1,000-page websites. And so
Yeah.
they're like rooms, they get messy. We forget, we forget about schema on a page here or there. So there definitely is that. And you definitely should outsource that. I mean, that's just like those are
Yeah.
easy fixes. If you don't know what you're doing in WordPress or Webflow, just like have somebody go do it, right? Easy. But what the CMO needs, or the marketing person needs, business owner, if you're SMB, is like, what do I need to talk about? Like, what is me? And so if
Mhm.
we're not usually the agency of record, but we're coming alongside the branding agency. And a lot of agency owners, they can do this too. That like
Mhm.
our clients are so big that we're not invited in to be the branding expert. And thank goodness we
Mhm.
don't want to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the idea is that you can come along is like, what's so special about your brand? What is so unique about you? What story are you trying to tell? And then amplify that along I mean, this is stuff that CMOs know, but it's nice to remind them. It's like, hey, along
Mhm.
this part of the funnel and this journey, we should be talking about this. And back to your earlier point of these different personas that are involved. I
Mhm.
don't, this is this is actually a really old concept, but in the book Challenger Sale. And like they were warning, like the authors of that book were warning people about this for a long time, well before LLMs. And the idea is you need messaging that goes past your champion, because that champion is going to have to go back and internally sell. Well,
Mhm.
now, everyone's on the LLM at the same time. They're all spending, I think, on average 3 hours each researching the vendors once the shortlist is made.
Mhm.
I have to go back and double check that research. But again, that's what Kerry Cunningham was putting out in his. If you go back, we should put a link in the notes. But the
Yeah.
2025 B2B buying report. But the idea is that they're all looking, and so they are all looking for this message that surpasses just the needs of the chief selling officer. So
Mm.
the HR is worrying about compliance, implementation is worried about this. So you need ideas and concepts. You can't write about, I may not write specifically about the role of how this is going to impact your BDRs, but I
Mhm.
might have something that goes from sales to finance. And so I need to think about these big themes and these big concepts that goes into our content. So that is really
Mhm.
where the SEO agency is changing, is, helping, walking more along brand. How is your brand appearing on the LLM? All these different, and what is your brand is how you are addressing all these issues, from first contact to implementation to being an evangelist and recommending your brand. What does that journey look like? That is your brand. And
Mhm.
how credible you are, and how much authority do you have to say these things, and building that authority, because like most of our clients we come in, they're successful already, but
Mhm.
they're not communicating it well and communicating to all the stakeholders that they serve. So that is really where the SEO agency is most impactful, is helping them. I always say SEO is, accelerating your authority. What you're already good at, we're just going to accelerate and amplify that message.
Yes. So that brings me to the concept of thought leadership, because what we're seeing is kind of like you mentioned before, and what we were talking about with brand citations and understanding the context. We kind of have these champions at brands who maybe don't want to be the face of the brand. And I see this a lot in agencies with agency founders in the low seven figures. They're the main revenue driver of the company,
Mm,
and a lot of their business is coming from referrals or word of mouth. And now there's this big push. I see it all over my LinkedIn and X feeds where everybody's doing drop DM in the comments and I'll send you the lead magnet. So
yeah,
we're talking
yeah,
about lead magnets all the time. You're on podcasts all the time. You have the Sure Oak podcast. There are other ways that we can build authority and credibility as a person who's leading the brand. I guess that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, is to,
mm,
one, put a face behind the brand, but two is because we understand that as our network grows, there's so much we can do with link building, but really it's about providing different context and making connections and actually having thought leaders who represent the brand, which just expands all the touch points that LLMs and SERPs can dig into. How important is it for me as an agency owner to have thought leadership content, whether that's related to the industry or the brand? Is that something that's necessary in 2026 for visibility of the brand, to actually have like a person?
oh,
Yeah.
a person. Yeah, that's such a good
Yeah.
point. I've, better or worse, I take the lead at Shuroak doing a lot of this content myself and putting my face out there.
Hmm.
And it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
But it's also because like a lot of my people don't want to do it. They're like, they're just
Yeah.
scared. But I'm doing my company a disservice if I don't like amplify their voices, right? Particularly
Mm.
because they're so much smarter than me on some of this, right? And they may not be uncomfortable on screen. So I think amplifying your voice is great, but you need to elevate the brand, and you
Hmm.
need to show expertise. So, my goal always, even with clients, and even let's say big, $200 million clients that with a software company, is to pick two or three what you would call client advocates and
Okay.
make them authors of blogs, to put them on podcasts, to try to prop them up. At least I think that's really important, because I think it's another authority signal. I don't have research on this at all,
Hmm.
but if your blog has two or three authors and you have two or three authors that are getting off-page authority signals with your brand associated with it, it would make sense theoretically that that would help your domain authority or your domain rating or your page rating. SEO still is a page by page battle. And so if your one blog is actually driving traffic or actually getting noticed or being snippets that are being cited in AEO or GEO, then I think that's really important. Social media is now crashing into SEO, and it's
Yeah.
going to continue to crash,
Yeah.
particularly with companies like XAI.
Hmm.
That doesn't drive a huge amount of B2B business, but you can see where it's going. We're seeing content that gets engagement
Hmm.
as being another off-page authority signal. So it used to be a high domain rating, but now I've actually seen a lot of people engage with this content. Therefore, it must be something that the LLM at least has to take notice, even
Yeah.
if it's credible. I think what it'll get to is the intent. Is like, is it getting engagement for good reasons or bad reasons, right? And if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
adding value. And so that was the other thing. If you have content, and this is Google's point of view, if you have content that's so valuable to your community, then write about it, and I don't think it needs to be just one person, but I do think it needs to be
Hmm.
brand. Another book I think people need to read is Tribes by Seth Godin. I think that's
Hmm.
really good. He just talks about know your tribe, know the people that you serve, and continually talking to that message. And don't Don't be salesy, but give.
Hmm.
I think this idea that we're so transactional, read my content, give me your email, talk to my salesperson, like, I don't
Yeah.
think I want to be sold to that way. And so what's so
Uh-huh.
really magic about organic is like, it's the best content, the most authority as dictated by a third party. And like, I think you're going to like this, Mr. Consumer, Mrs.
Yeah.
Consumer. You need to like, this will be something you'll like. And there's something very freeing, like, oh, someone gave to me I have a friend who's as a branding agency. He always says, give up the ghost, give up that great thing to your
Mm,
community that will really help them. And so I think as people start thinking about their brand, whether it's personally or other people on their team or the brand, like, I don't think people care if it's Nick or Shiro. Just give me
yeah.
something that helps me. Cause like running my business is freaking hard. So
Yeah.
don't make it hard on me by making me go through a paywall or a gate or making me talk to your sales person. Like just make it easy on me and I'll remember you when I actually need help with this. So I mean, I think they're fun when those things on LinkedIn, type in, bot and I'll give you
Yeah.
my lead magnet and I'll bug you forever on this email. But like, I just don't think that's the way the world really works. I mean, if it's a
Yeah.
good piece of content, I'll read it. I'll remember you. I'm so glad you're a part of this community. But if it's just a one-off thing that you do once a year to get some emails,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
it's
a
about
it's a
consistency.
tactic. Yeah, it's a tactic, not a principle.
And it doesn't help the community. I mean, people want people here for the long haul that care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something, especially in the, like I said, like the early seven figures, it can be difficult because month over month, it's like we got to get clients in the door. Otherwise, we have a very short runway, before we're really struggling. So it can be hard. I think Russell Brunson was where I originally heard this concept, but he's like, whoever can give the most away for the longest period of time for free is the one who's going to win. And
Yeah.
that really it resonated with me. And it's exactly what you're saying. So not only are we providing, a proliferation of content over the long term, adding value, jab, jab, jab before we right hook for our clients, but also we have to walk that talk internally as agencies as well. And
That's so good.
yeah, Tribes by Seth Godin. I'm gonna put that on my list because I have like several other books that I'm actually the book that I'm looking to read next is called Outlive by Peter Attia. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
you've heard of
Yeah, I
it,
love
but
Peter Attia. Yeah, he's well, him and who is the other guy, the ophthalmologist from Stanford?
yeah, why
You know
can
what
I
I'm
think
talking
Andrew
about. But
Huberman?
anyway, yeah, it's like the guys my age are just enthralled
Huberman,
by
right?
by these
Yeah.
people beating, fighting off Father Time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the human side of things, so it's funny because marketing is, in my mind, marketing is psychology in action with
Mm,
tech blended in there. It's all based on human behavior. And my big shtick recently has been we succeed not by necessarily just the effort that we put in, but it's how well rested and how well prepared we are in order
yeah.
to make the effort that we put in optimized and at our peak performance. Is it good effort that we're putting in, or is it just like strenuous effort? At Sure Oak, you've talked about being vulnerable and having a leadership quality that really connects with humans. Maybe for those who are running an agency or they're working with a big team, like how are you balancing the increasing demands of clients of like, clients like SoFi, which is a massive finance
Mm.
institution? How are you balancing sort of that demand of producing results with the empathy of still being a human and understanding that we have a life?
Oh, yeah, so good. I like to say a good agency has clients that have been with them over 2 years.
Hmm.
A great agency has people that have been with it for over 2 years.
Ooh. Mm.
Our first mission really is this is really hokey. We call them acorns.
Okay.
So, you know
Did you say that's hokey or okie? Because man,
oh,
you
that's
are
so
killing
good.
it with their dad jokes today.
Oh, good. We could do this all day. But the idea is, we invest in our acorns. And so
Hmm.
one of the things that probably drove people crazy when I came into the agency, I wasn't the original founder. I came into
Right.
the agency over 2 years ago. But I think what probably drove people crazy was like, hey guys, I think this AI thing's going to be a thing, right? Yeah. And we weren't exactly prepared. We have about 35 people in the company, right? And there were definitely people like, yeah, I see it coming, but it wasn't through the whole institution. And the value that we had around like investing in our own people, we have this value we say around if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so the whole idea, like this whole AI thing and like, hey, what is SEO? Like GEO wasn't even a term yet,
Hmm.
but like, what is this thing? And do we all believe in it? So we started just doing what we call little book clubs. And so little people broke up into, we went from a big group where we all talked about this mission, vision, value. And we broke it up into book clubs, and the book clubs would run for 6 weeks, and there would be an AI topic, and people would take turns leading. This idea that people want to get better, that they want a skill, that they want a place where they can move up, that was the most important thing. But basically, back to your original question, Austin, what that did was translate into that caring for our people, investing in the training and education of our people, translated into that caring and empathy and training of our clients. That was the biggest payoff to me. Like, I, in theory, knew that that's what would have happened. I mean, I've been a CRO for 15 years in the SaaS world, but running in an agency where we have so many clients and is so hands-on and is so service-led, that partnership mentality and training and giving something of value, because people can partner with anybody, but they want a partner who knows their stuff, that's going to challenge them, that's going to, bring solutions to hard problems. You could get backlinks with anybody. You could do schema markup with anybody, but you can't get strategy and partnership with anybody. And that was the main thing. You can't be a partner to a client until you're a partner with your people. That was my main takeaway. And so I think if somebody's trying to go from 1 million to 5 million, the biggest thing you can do is invest in your people and making sure you're giving the most outstanding customer experience you can. Because getting new business is hard. And churn is really easy in this business. You screw up once and your contract's over, you're gone. Because they got, I got 40,000 competitors. Look at us go somewhere else. And that's easy. So the switching cost is really low, but you got to make yourself impossible to fire. You got to because you have to work so hard and so knowledgeable that they're afraid to leave. That's the number one thing for scaling, that people have to do the unscalable. And it's that investment.
Yeah. I just made a LinkedIn post about that. Like, the trends that I see in agency leaders, particularly founders. And one of the number 5 thing was they do the unscalable things, which is really interesting. It goes back to that sort of rest and preparation field. Like, yes, we can go as leaders and we can execute the campaigns. We can do all the technical stuff, but that's not the point. A lot of our time is spent reading articles, in conversation, connecting with people, hanging out in private Slack communities or Discord, and just understanding that the value that we're bringing is like, our impact is going to be the tip of the spear, and that tip of the spear has to be immensely sharp for when we come into contact with another, let's say, tip of the spear that has access to a massive network of people who are doing the execution. You're right, seeing your employers or your employees as partners and investing in their growth. I love that approach. Like, okay, yes, we have our clients and we treat them as partners. We're invested in their strategy. We're helping them understand, to your point, like the client journey and different personas, but we're also understanding our employees and the people who work with us. In order to scale the agency, retention has to be really high. Otherwise, we can't get the compound effects if we're churning 20, 30, 50% year over year. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing internally. To really be invested in your employees and in your people.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I guess I'll point someone to another book,
please,
called Rocket Fuel. It's Gino Wickman's. It's the second book off of Traction. But it got me thinking about, what is my role as a CEO? And I think a lot of agency owners, they're this player coach. You got to get to coach as fast as possible if you want to scale. And so I consider my job description really simple. It's 3 S's. It's sales, strategy, and spirit. Those are the only 3 things I'm really responsible for as CEO. My external, and not even strategy for clients, strategy for sure, giving people a vision to shoot for. But the spirit part is, what is our culture? How do we value each other? That is the most important thing if we're going to scale this thing. And that is completely counterintuitive. Like, what's my predictable revenue funnel? Am I doing outbound? How many sales leads did I get? How many converted? What's my close rate? Like, great. Yeah. Those are all important, but like, what is the spirit and the ethos behind that? That is the most important thing to scale, because clients want to work with people. They don't want to work with automatons and machines and engineers. They want to work with value-added consultants and partners.
Yeah, man, the spirit thing, I've never heard that 3S framework, but you're right. It's so important. Like, there are businesses that I've worked with in the past where I was like, even through the hard times, I would still prefer to suffer with you than to go through a mediocre time with someone that I freaking hate. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah,
And
I love
I
that.
find my career grows and my income grows and my happiness grows if I am surrounded by the right people. And just doing that sort
Mm,
of reflection, like kind of looking at the patterns of when I felt the happiest and most successful in my life, a big part of that had to do with the people, one, and how much I felt like I was growing day over day as compared to last
that's so,
week or last month. It's not
that's
this
so good.
I don't remember who the person was that talked about this. Maybe it was Gino Wickman, where he's talking about the gap and the gain, where entrepreneurs
Mm,
much of the time they measure themselves on the gap of who they think they're supposed to be in this current
mm.
situation. That gap is massive, and he said the ones who really succeed and can stick it out in the long term measure the gain from who they were yesterday, and that's their criteria
Oh,
for
that's so good.
success.
If you
So
can be
good.
comfortable not filling the gap as a CEO, you're on your way. I wouldn't. I always had this. People make fun of me and sure, like these Nickisms, but like I
Yeah,
always say, a good VP changes your life. And
yeah.
so I encourage everyone to get a Lauren. Lauren is my chief operating officer. She does all the things I'm really, really bad at. But she
Mm,
loves doing it. She
mhm.
loves doing the stuff I hate. And she's not really, I don't think she likes doing the three S's, right?
Yeah,
And she can sure make the three S's, hum and scale. But, you know, being comfortable in that gap. And if somebody like your gap might be someone else's like gain,
gain.
right? And if you could just give that to them, you will take off. You will take
Oh
off.
yeah.
Watch your NPS go up, your referrals go up, your churn go down. If you can get all that, like, wow, I did something very different by one person by affecting my three most important KPIs.
Yeah. Yeah. But it requires the trust of the people, which goes back into the growth. Like,
Mm,
do
trust.
I trust my people? Do I think that they're going to be with me for the long term? Can I release control? And, there was this other framework of, the if you're looking at a project, the first 10% is the vision and kind of like the
Mm,
overall, let's say, strategy. Pass off the next 80% and then circle back around for the last 10 to make sure that your taste is involved in the final product.
so good.
Yeah. Man, so good. I feel like the culture piece is something we could dive deep on in a whole other podcast. Nick, as we circle up and kind of wrap up this episode, which has been wonderful to have a conversation with you. I always appreciate talking with leaders like you because I feel like there's much more of a human element to it in this understanding that
Mm,
yes, we are very good at executing. Yes, we understand like where the market is heading and we can skate to where the puck is going, but behind all of that it's I can tell that you care about your health, your relationships, and the understanding of what it's like to be a human and have the human experience and not like, I have the experience of a CEO and there's a human behind it. It's human first and then CEO.
oh
So I really
man, I thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much. I think it was a big realization. It was like, hey, I don't think I'm that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But, like, letting go of so much ego and, like,
Yeah.
trusting people and, like, this is something my pastor always says. He goes, "Don't worry about climbing the ladder, be the ladder. Be the ladder
Mm,
so someone else can move up and step into those gaps and get those gains that you're talking about." I think that's another one. Sorry with the Nickisms, but, like, I love these
love it.
little things and language that is so powerful. It's been powerful to Sure Oak. I just so proud of this place and the people that we work with. I always have this goal, this vision. I want winners everywhere. I want everyone
Mm,
here to like just be amazing. I want to be hard to get in here. I want you to grow here and I want you be able to do hard things here. And when it stops becoming a place like that, it's just not fun.
yeah. It's not fun for anybody. Well,
No.
Nick Fraunfelder, we will include Sure Oak in the description. We'll include your LinkedIn if that's the place where you prefer people to reach out with you. Obviously, you have plenty of content for us to digest. The last kind of tactical, practical question that I want to run by you is with things moving so fast, what are like the top 1 to 3 resources where you get the best information of how to stay up to date with the market? X
Ooh.
newsletters, Slack communities.
Yeah, so that's a great one. So I try not just keep it to marketing stuff. So obviously search
Yeah.
engine journal, great. Just try and but like every time I see something there, I try to cross reference it or go to the original source. Like, what's Google Console saying about this, right? That's obviously huge. I also try to keep myself as a leader just more informed in general.
Hmm.
So you got to listen to the Lex Friedman podcast. Like, what is like he's getting the best leaders in AI. Demisa Sabi, Dario Amade. They're coming on his podcast and they're unpacking how these things work and how they're
Mm,
going to impact our lives. So you got to get like Tim Ferriss has another great podcast. So these are big ones. I think if you
hmm.
see a guest on there that is somewhat related to AI or business leadership, perk up and take notice. I mean, he interviewed Bill Gurley the other day. That was a must listen to podcast on Tim Ferriss. That was really good. Even the All In podcast, they do a lot of cool things. I think people feel like it's politically charged, but they are definitely talking about where the puck is going. And if you don't know what's going on with the Trump administration, you got to know, because it is politics is highly involved in AI. So you need to know what's going on there. So there's that. And then like read constantly, read. I just think the one characteristic I always see of great leaders is they read way more than me, more than me. So like you said, like Austin, I think what you're doing is having a book list and catching up on it. That is something that will serve you. And I think I had to get comfortable as a CEO, spending my professional time reading. You got to give yourself some grace to do that, because you're not leading your organization unless you're filling your brain, and you can't make content unless you have something interesting to say or synthesize around this data.
100%. Last note I'll make on that is I'm following a framework called the 12-week year right now. It's the first time I'm doing this. I'm in a men's group where, we're following this 12-week year framework. Really cool if you wanted to look it up. The two things that I'm really struggling to implement because of that exact thing is, one, on Tuesdays, I have what's called a deep work block, which is a 3-hour, strategy block. And then on Thursdays, coming up a little bit later today, they ask you to take 2 to 3 hours. That's called a breakout block, where you're supposed to separate from work during the workday. Because success is making a big impact, but it's also like having a life and understanding that your life is at the center and the work should be built around that. So it's encouraging us to like force ourselves to understand why we're even doing work in the first place, and taking that chunk of life back during the work week. So very cool.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, good for you in doing that. I mean, it's a great investment.
It is. Well, Nick, thank you for being here. I hope that people will reach out to you. You're an absolute joy to talk to, and I hope you have a great day.
Awesome. You're full of energy. You're full of compassion. You're helping your community. I love being here. I hope we do it again, man.
For sure. Cheers.
Cheers.